Hello and welcome to the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley's program for this week. Every week we bring to you a new program on education, innovation, technology, and humanitarian service. My name is Mitty Chang. I am the president of this Rotary eClub, and I'm joined on this recording by a few of our members as well as our guest speaker. I will leave the introduction of our guest speaker to one of our club members who has referred and brought him on board to this program with us. But let me start with some brief introductions in no particular order other than the one I see on my screen and what you will see on this recording. To my left, at the top left, we have Yvonne. Yvonne, wave hi to everyone. Yvonne is one of our club board members, but she is also an educator. She's currently finishing her master's degree and teaching credential at San Jose State University to be an elementary school teacher. Below me at the bottom left, I have Shags. Shags, wave hi to everyone. Shags is our membership chair. He's been a Rotarian for decades and has a perfect attendance record, which is pretty impressive. He is also a money management coach and lives in the Bay Area, and he will correct me later in the Q&A if I got that wrong. And then the bottom right, we have Brian Litticoat. Brian, wave hi to everyone. Brian is down in the Santa Cruz area and is one of our members and also a lawyer. And I'm looking forward for each of our members to maybe do a quick additional self-introduction in the Q&A later. Yvonne, I'd like to turn it to you for the introduction of our guest speaker.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitty. So I am so thrilled that Aaron is coming to speak to us. I actually found out about his company, Sproutel, which he will tell you all about, totally by chance, because being the millennial that I am, I was just cruising through my social media, Instagram to be specific, and I followed the White House Instagram a few months ago, and I came upon this picture. I actually have it right here. I don't know if I can show you guys, or if you guys will be able to see it, but that caught my eye because I said, how adorable is that? And why is the White House posting a photo of teddy bears? So it turns out that his company, Sproutel, and you can see clearly this isn't Aaron, but this is the other co-founder, Hannah. They were featured at the first ever White House Demo Day, which they joined entrepreneurs from all over the country to the White House to kind of do a demo about their startup, and they were featured on the White House Instagram, and I thought that was really cool. So I blasted out an email to them and said, hey, we're the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley, can you do a presentation for us? And they said yes, and now here they are. So for our members, if you're ever hesitant about just shooting out an email to a company you think is really cool, do it. Sometimes they'll reply. But enough about that. I'm going to introduce Aaron, and he will tell us more about his company. Aaron is a maker. From sculptors to business, he is fascinated with the process of taking an idea from concept to reality. He is passionate about creating interfaces that drive a shift towards ubiquitous computing. He is currently a co-founder and CEO of Sproutel, the creator of Jerry the Bear, a platform for pediatric health and wellness education. Aaron has shared his expertise in robotics and social entrepreneurship through speaking at numerous conferences, including TED at IBM, Hardware Innovation Workshop, Big Ideas Fest, MakerCon, TEDxUnisinos, CUSP, and Stanford MedX. Aaron has also been recognized as one of 50 honored makers by the White House in 2014. He holds a degree in Mechatronics and user interaction design from Northwestern University. When unplugged, Aaron is either likely carving stone or surfing. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Aaron. Aaron, the floor is all yours.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. I am equally as thrilled to be here and be able to share the story of Sproutel and Jerry the Bear. Before I dive too deeply into our company, how we work, what we do, I find sometimes what's interesting is just sort of hearing the origin story of how we got started kind of in this path of work, specifically leveraging the power of storytelling and play to help children with some pretty difficult medical conditions. So Sproutel as a company really started from equal parts passion and problem. My co-founder, Hannah Chung, and I met at Northwestern University through a nonprofit that she co-founded called Design for America, which is all about leveraging the power of design to solve problems in your local community that have a social impact and the potential to scale globally. So the problem that we really banded together over is how might we help and improve the lives of children with type 1 diabetes. Now, for us, that was the problem part. The passion part is that we both had some experience with chronic illness early on in our childhood. For me, I had human growth hormone deficiency, and so I self-administer daily injections for about 5 years growing up. For Hannah, she's had a few family members with type 2 diabetes, and it's really shaped when her father was diagnosed, seeing the behavior shift that he had to undergo and how that echoed and radiated through the entire family. Kind of that's the part problem, part passion. So this started as an extracurricular project, and it kind of sprouted. We left school in the middle of our senior year to participate in a business accelerator, and luckily finished college by the skin of our teeth by Skyping into class, which was certainly a fun experience, and in the field of education, which a lot of people speak on. Happy to chat about that in Q&A. But jumping right into kind of what is Sproutel and what do we do? At Sproutel, we create innovations in kids' health. We envision a world of kids that are happy and healthy, where storytelling imparts meaningful health lessons through characters that kids love. So we kind of like to say, what if your prescription was a cartoon? What if a trip to the doctor's office was like going to Disney? And what if play was intrinsically healthy? And the way that we do this is we kind of operate as a research and development company, and we create all sorts of interesting product concepts and intellectual property around different healthcare conditions that we see a user-centered need. The core kind of theme between our products is that we aim to comfort, to entertain, and to empower children who are going through some really complex medical conditions. And what's key to this is something that we've developed, which is a patient-centered, empathy-driven design process. And basically what that means is that before we ever start coming up with an idea, before we ever start building anything, we go out and we talk to users. And really at the core of our design process is children. We want to understand what is it like through the eyes of a child to go through treatment for whatever condition they might have, whether it's type 1 diabetes or whether it might be childhood cancer. And then look at it from the perspective of kind of the circles that radiate out from that, from their parents, from their caregivers. And at the same time that we kind of do all of this ethnographic research with kids, we have a network of medical collaborators. So we understand what are the best practices out there in the medical world, and what are the differences between how kids are seeing things and how things should be done, and how might we design solutions that blend these two worlds together. And so the way that we operate as a company is really in one of two ways from a business standpoint. We create these product concepts. We'll either commercialize them ourselves into a product like Jerry the Bear to address the needs of kids with type 1 diabetes. And we work with kind of distributors to get our products into the hands of kids. The other model, which we've been migrating more towards, is actually finding kind of our distributors upfront who are passionate about a particular market. And we co-develop the product together that they'll end up selling. And this has really been interesting for us, and it's only been made possible by seeing some success with our first products. But it's much easier to work with the end customer because we can design products directly in the context of the distribution mechanism that they'll be reaching kids through, whether that's, say, given to them at diagnosis in a hospital or at a clinic or sent directly to their homes. So it's really interesting. And that all sounds pretty abstract. So I'll pull it in to a case study, and I got a ton of things to show and tell. So our first product that has really led us and led us in the founding of the company Sproutel is Jerry the Bear. And Jerry is a best friend for kids with type 1 diabetes. Children take care of Jerry by squeezing his fingers, checking his blood sugar, feeding him foods, giving him insulin, and then following along in a series of 21 animated storybooks where they learn everything from hypoglycemic symptom identification to carbohydrate counting, but all through play. So they're meeting up with friends like Momo the monkey, who teaches them about where to rotate their sights, and Penny the penguin, who teaches them about how to identify hypoglycemic symptoms. And it all follows a curriculum that we developed hand in hand with doctors, and it's actually been in part funded by the National Institutes of Health through their SBIR program. And so I have a few bears here with me. This is actually the first bear that we ever shipped. And right here is the bear that we are actually shipping this week. We have 2,500 of these going out into the world, which we are absolutely thrilled about. And so kind of in our development process, we first ended up shipping these bears in 2013. We reached about 2% of children newly diagnosed. And so to give a sense of scale of where Jerry's at in terms of in kids' hands now, this year we're going to be reaching 30% of children newly diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And Jerry is really kind of exemplifies the work that we do in a number of ways. The first is just kind of going to the process. So patient-centered, empathy-driven sounds a little bit high level, but what it means is that before we ever shipped this bear, we had tested 29, oh, he's laughing. We had tested 29 iterations with 350 kids. So we really got a holistic sense, you know, iterating everything from in the beginning form and interface to behaviors to what type of education can best engage children. And what it kind of leads to, or what it led to, is a product that kids really latched onto. You know, for these children that received a bear, it took on a role that was far beyond a toy. You know, it wasn't something that was played with intensely for 2 weeks and then thrown off in the toy box. 6 months out after receiving their bears, kids still play for over an hour a week. And what we hear from families is really interesting. It kind of takes on the role of a sibling. So there's a placemat set for Jerry at the dinner table. Kids are tucked into bed with their bears. It's the first thing they grab to bring to school for show and tell, to explain their diabetes to friends, or if a friend comes over for a play date, Jerry comes to and explains what type 1 is. And kind of some of the outcomes that we see from that, parents tell us that it's easier to have conversations about type 1 diabetes. Stress is reduced because they can say, hey, have we checked Jerry's blood sugar? Instead of saying, hey, did you check your blood sugar? It kind of is a way of facilitating a lot of these conversations that aren't invasive and that don't seem intrusive for kids. It's also made kids more talkative. So parents tell us that kids start asking questions about their diabetes. They start sharing more of their feelings related to their diabetes. And ultimately, and I guess this would be a good time to share my screen. Ultimately, kids tell us that Jerry makes them feel like their diabetes is a superpower. And these are just some of our users. This is all stuff that they sent us in from Facebook. That feeling kind of distilled the feeling that of a child feeling like their illness is a superpower, really underlies the core of what we at Sproutel want to give to every single child who's facing a difficult medical condition. We want to empower children to have that same mindset, to reframe their care. So that's a little bit about just kind of a case study of how we operate as a company. We are continuously kind of developing products with partners. We're just starting the development process of a similar product for children with cancer, and have concepts cooking for a wide range of other conditions, from things like obesity and type 2 diabetes prevention, all the way up through food allergies. And I'm happy to dive into any of those more specifically in Q&A. And then just as kind of a historical note before we dive in there, we've been around for about 5 years doing this type of work. We started in 2012. We've been funded by a combination of angel investors, of impact investors, some venture capital, and some funding from National Institutes of Health. So with that, we are absolutely thrilled that you reached out to us, excited to show more about how these guys work, and happy to answer any questions that you might have about Sproutel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. That was wonderful. Jax, do we have our sound effects going on?
No, not on the iPad. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Aaron, sometimes we'll have the applause sound effect, but we didn't have that queued up today. I apologize for that. That was wonderful. So I'll start off Q&A, and then we'll toss it to our members. If members go ahead and use the raise hand feature, or just wave at me later. So Aaron, the first question I have for you is the iteration between the teddy bear you guys used to send out and then the one you send out right now. I mean, there are definitely, I think, some very obvious visual differences, right, between the two. One of them is the size and also the screen. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what was the learning process between that first iteration versus what you guys are shipping out today. And also maybe talk a little bit more about the technology piece of it as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So a tremendous amount of learning for us. So essentially, when we first started designing this, we first shipped the bear that you saw with the screen in 2013, which meant we started designing some of the hardware actually in the first year of the company. And we decided to we call ourselves the most artisanal builders of Android tablets, because what's in Jerry's belly is actually an Android tablet. We overspec our hardware with the intention that we wanted to build a platform that could grow and that could scale with children. And it actually served a really great purpose to iterate on top of and to be able to develop in Unity or in kind of some of these more modern building techniques that weren't looking at kind of building stuff on purely embedded platforms. So that afforded us a lot of really interesting learning, because we were able to get bears out. We were able to iterate while they were in the hands of kids and kind of push new software to the hardware. And certainly a lot of learning from all of those experiences. The biggest shift that happened for us that kind of caused us to jump from more of a fully embedded system like what you saw in our original bear to this guy is actually some research that we had done with that funding I mentioned from the NIH. And so we had kids coming through our office, and this was a few years ago, and a lot had changed from the technology that's accessible to kids in 2012 to 2015, 2016. And one of the biggest differences is that there's a type of a monitor that children can get called a continuous glucose monitor. And they became very popular for kids. And so it's a little sensor that it pushes, you wear it on your body, and it gives you a continuous readout of your blood sugar. And what parents are doing is they're buying their young children, as young as 4, smartphones, so that when they go to school, parents can see the data from their child's device. So all of a sudden we had this dream scenario. We had always, everybody had always asked us, hey, why isn't this an app? Why aren't you putting a phone inside of a bear? And at the time, it's because children didn't have as wide access to things like that. And so we saw these kids coming in with their smartphones, and we were like, oh my gosh, here's an opportunity to do something that we had always wanted to do, building off of a user insight. And so we created this bear that we have here. And this actually uses some pretty neat computer vision tech. So we can zoom into Jerry's world, which I have on my phone. And you can see his house, his magical trainer Navi, his swing set and picnic table where you can play games with him, and this magical magnifying glass. Oh, and I actually have this in a mode of a virtual Jerry, but his magical magnifying glass pops him out so that you can look at some of these patches. Sorry, I'm beating our parental code to prove I am older than age 8, but apparently it's quite difficult as I'm chatting. So his magical magnifying glass pops you into kind of this world where we pass through the camera. And if I can balance these in my hands correctly and show you, we can lock onto any of these patches and then kind of get this almost augmented reality view of Jerry. So here we locked onto his belly patch, and so we got his insulin pen. So now you can take the cap off the pen, you get your alcohol swab, you can swab the tip of the pen, swab his site. And then we get his needle cap. And we can go through all of the steps and procedures that a child would have to do to administer a dose to themselves. And so that's kind of the big jump, and you could check his blood sugar this way. We still have all of the interactive storybooks. We're actually able to provide a lot more foods that kids can start to learn about carbohydrate counting with, since we're not limited by plastic food discs, which we shipped with the bear previously. You can go into Jerry's kitchen and he's got junk foods, which parents had asked us for because kids want to eat mac and cheese and they want to eat pizza and they want to know how to bolus themselves for it. So that's a little bit about kind of the technological differences between the two, and really driven by this big shift of just observing younger kids starting to have smartphones.
That's awesome. And then so for the app, which looks great, can you guys, I guess, how do parents access that? Is that something where you also have a parent view and the data is shared, or do they have to access it on the same phone as the child?
So in terms of data, the app isn't really, there's no parental dashboard, at least at this point. There's no printout for parents. We really see Jerry's main focus on comfort and then the secondary focus on education. So the way that a child takes care of Jerry's diabetes, we actually intentionally make it easier in some ways, right? Because we want to empower children and we want to just convey the base concepts. We want to show that there's a correlation between food and insulin. and that there are certain foods that are unhealthy that will do different things to your blood sugar than foods that are healthy. And so we're not collecting any data really about the kids that we're then showing back to parents. In terms of how to get the app, we actually just published it live for the App Store like 2 days ago. So it's free to download. There's a virtual version of Jerry on there that you can play around with. And then if you purchase a bear from one of our distributors, you can use kind of all of the added qualities of being able to play with something physical and all of the kind of augmented reality you can do with the patches.
That's awesome. Yvonne, I'm going to turn it over to you for a question. And you're muted.
I am muted. I always forget that. Okay. So my question is more about the distribution aspect of Jerry the Bear. So you mentioned that kids can purchase it, or their parents can purchase it from a distributor. How do you guys distribute it? Do you go through a company, or do you give it to hospitals to give to children?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. When we started out, we started running pre-order campaigns on our website. Was the first way that we sold. So we sold directly to families from our site, and we built recognition in the diabetes community by Hannah and I going to diabetes conferences wearing bear suits and playing with kids and having demos, right? And so we were able to build a community, and the diabetes community is so small and so welcoming and wonderful that bloggers wrote about us and really helped spread the word. About a year in, we ran a crowdfunding campaign that raised funds to donate bears almost on a one-to-one basis. Our early bears were $300 and was challenging for a lot of families that have other medical costs. So that's how we kind of in the first phase of Sproutel that we sold Jerry. Now with this new bear, largely driven, I think, by the fact that he's a lot cheaper. We're working with distributors right now, one in Canada and one in the US. And what they're doing is they're providing them in newly diagnosed kits to kids at the hospital, or with the first order of medical supplies. So in Canada, we're working with a medical equipment company, and we're still hashing out the details, but that's kind of the general concept.
Aaron, what have been some of the learning elements of what you've learned since you founded Sproutel and where you guys are now? And this is in the context of, if we have viewers out there who are entrepreneurs or they are starting their own startup, what kind of advice would you give to them based off what you've learned?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a tremendous amount of learning from where we first started. And it's difficult to synthesize them, into a few key things. I'll say maybe most immediately, one of the things that has been really helpful is the power of listening. When you're a young entrepreneur, you want to go out there and you want to pitch every single person that you meet, right? And there's a great power to actually just having conversations where there isn't a desired outcome, maybe of making a sale or closing money or whatever, your outcome might be, but just asking questions and listening. And for us, that's been the difference, I think, really in helping us transition to models where we're able to distribute on larger scales, because we were able to better identify what value people actually want, what they're looking for, and be able to present the work that we do through the lens of how it might actually add value to the people that we're talking to. And so that was just kind of a learning shift, I would say, from, bright eyes, bushy tails, 21 years old, starting a company and talking at everybody, and then evolving over time and really understanding the power of listening.
That's terrific. And so where are the bears themselves manufactured? Are they, and then do you guys have a manufacturing partner that you guys work closely with to design the product itself, or is that something done in-house?
Yeah, so what you see behind me is our workbench. It's same as in the Instagram photo that Yvonne saw. We do the vast majority of the software development and the design in-house. Some stuff like PCB layout we'll work with some partners to do, but we're an interdisciplinary team of everybody's got kind of an engineering and a design and even an art background for some of us. And so definitely a lot of that is really what is part of our secret sauce. For the manufacturing, it's been different product to product. So what I showed you, this first bear is circuit boards made overseas in China. We do all of our injection molding locally here in Providence, Rhode Island, where we're based. We did all of the final assembly in this office of our electronics into our plastic parts, making parts like this. And then the bears were sewn, assembled, and drop shipped out of Phoenix, Arizona. So certainly for those listening that are interested in supply chain, you can tell that is not an efficient supply chain, but it worked for very, very low volume manufacturing, which is what we were doing. We're talking about 250, 500 at a time for pretty complex Android tablets, 16 sensors sewn into a bear, and a number of different plastic molded parts. For this guy, we work with one factory. So these are made overseas in China. This is our first production run from our factory. We've been pretty stoked about the way that they've come out.
That's awesome. And the new bear is super adorable.
Oh yeah,
when you
glad
pulled
you
it up,
like it.
I was like, oh my gosh. That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your team's like and how big your team is? I know that you have a co-founder. I'm not entirely sure how big your team is.
Yeah, totally. So we're 4 people. I'll actually scoot out here, and you can see our office. This is Hannah, who is deep in ethnography and synthesizing awesome insights. And then coming around here, this is Brian and Joel. So that's the team at work. Joel's headphones are incredibly good at canceling noise. It's wild. And then this is our space here in Providence. And something interesting that sometimes people like to see is when I was talking about kind of the iterations of prototypes, we can see from here this first bear, which is very creepy and whose eyes are actually hacked out of a Furby. They open and they blink. We thought that would be cool when we first started, down through just a selection of sort of some of the prototypes of what it's taken to go from kind of start to finish. In the middle, we had a big issue with not being able to make our bears smile, so we have a lot of angry looking bears.
Thank you for the tour. That's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was great to see the place.
So we have time for one more question. I don't know, Brian or Shags, do you have a question? If not,
nope. It's just honor what you're doing. It's great. Thank you so much. I love the creativity.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I'm curious actually about, you kind of alluded to this in your presentation, but moving forward for the future, you said that you're also working on other products for other diseases that children may be battling with. Would those be more iterations of bears, or you're looking at other animals? What is that looking like for you?
Yeah, definitely. We're exploring some other characters as we're moving in these directions. And since we're working with partners, I unfortunately have to be tight-lipped about some of the specifics. But definitely can expect some interesting and exciting stuff. And to that effect, if there's anybody that knows folks that are really passionate and interested about certain areas in kids' health, that would be kind of a siren ask that I always put out to come our way and come say hi. Do what Yvonne did and send us an email.
Very cool. Thank you, Aaron. Brian, I saw your mic unmute for a second. I didn't know if you want to make a comment.
I know. I'm just curious. I was looking at the website while you were speaking and saw the team. How did you all meet?
Oh yeah, totally. So it's pretty interesting. So Hannah and I met in college. We have known each other for, this is hard because typically I'm sitting next to Hannah and I can ask her. But I believe at this point, over 7 years. I transferred to Northwestern. The first class I had was with Hannah. She wrote me into Design for America, and it was one of the best things that happened. And so we took countless classes together, and then really, I guess, bonded through working on Jerry the Bear together. Our other teammates have pretty interesting stories. I guess I met Joel in the basement of a Brown University professor, assembling circuit boards in a toaster oven, which was a ton of fun. And at the time, he was making toy controllers for kids with cerebral palsy. So kind of right in the same vein. And Brian, we met at a cool unconference event where actually the attendees define the talks that happen. And has an incredible background in game development. And so that's kind of the superhero story of how we've all met and assembled, so to speak.
That's incredible. Aaron, thank you so much for sharing your stories and also answering all of our questions. That was all the time we have for Q&A. Viewers, I just want to remind you really quick, right below the video will be some links to Sproutel, and also any other links that Aaron suggests that we put. And of course, leave a comment at the bottom of this meeting page if you haven't yet. Feel free to reach out and ask Aaron a question, and we will forward it along. Or comment and let us know how cute you think the bears are, or what maybe new character suggestions you have for the Sproutel team, and maybe they'll consider it. And Aaron, I'm going to turn it right back to you for the last comment.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I guess I've said this a few times now, but I'm incredibly honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And you know, as I had mentioned, we're always looking for collaborators and partners to work with on new products for children. So if anybody out there who's listening has an interest in a particular area of kids' health, please reach out to us, and let's start talking and see if there might be the chance to make something cute and something helpful.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Take care now.
Bye.